Today we're going to watch the Area Plan Commission that happened on Tuesday, September 2nd. There's going to be a lot of cuts. Watching my video isn't going to be a substitute for watching the actual meeting. This is the meeting that is regarding the rezoning for the land for the data center.
So before we move on to our next case, I will have to recuse myself. I have a personal conflict with this case. So I'll be passing that to the president honors to Dan for the evening.
I just want to say real quick that he did do the right thing there by recusing himself. Anyway, let's continue.
This next hearing is different than the two previous ones. This is a rezoning hearing. So rezonings and amendments to zoning ordinance are both considered law amendments, not approvals within the existing ordinance. So consequently, the Plan Commission is a recommending body. They can choose to send a negative recommendation, a positive recommendation, or no recommendation on whatever it is that they hear to the legislative body who is actually going to make the final determination. In this particular case, that will be the county commissioners, since this is in the unincorporated areas. When it goes to the commissioners, they're allowed to consider pretty much anything that's not discriminatory. So we're one piece of what gets considered as it works its way up to a final decision.
Okay, so if it was a little hard to hear or understand what she meant, essentially the Area Plan Commission doesn't have a final say in what happens with the land that is being petitioned. They basically say, okay, we recommend that the area be rezoned, or we don't, or we have no opinion about it. That opinion is then sent to the Clinton County Commissioners, and then the Clinton County Commissioners will decide whether that land should be rezoned or not, partly based on the recommendation or non-recommendation that the Area Plan Commission sends to them, and also based on other information. And it's only for rezoning the land. It is not necessarily saying, yes, we want a data center there. It is just rezoning the land.
All right, I'll address the board. I am not in favor of granting a continuance. I don't know how you feel, but everybody's here tonight. I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's go.
I agree.
I would agree. We have a roll call on that.
Specifically, they are considering whether or not rezoning these parcels to light industrial is appropriate, because any potential user could end up on that land. The data center may be what everyone is concerned about, but once it's rezoned, that changes the uses that are or not allowed moving forward. So for us, it's a broader conversation than just specifically what the applicant at hand may be interested in. That center might not be developed. It might someday no longer be on the site or discontinued. There might be other uses. So all of it should be examined, not just what's the topic at the moment.
So as you could hear there, I hope, they explained that it's not just for the data center. Once the area is rezoned, any particular industry, any particular company that is that could be categorized as industrial or light could go there.
All right, let's follow our normal procedure. I've asked you to kind of avoid the applause, things like that. It takes up time, and I'd like to go home tonight early. But I will ask the applicants to come forward tonight and make their presentation. That's our normal way of doing things. After that, we will ask for the audience to participate. So after the application, the applicants give their view of what this is going to look like and the purpose for the rezone, we will take public comment after that.
So this will be a representative of logistics.
So there's really two reasons that we're requesting the continuance. The first is, as pointed out in the staff report, there's questions that remain for drainage, improvements to County Road 100 North, which I've driven. Definitely going to have to be approved if you're going to put any industrial traffic up there. Buffer and screening for the surrounding residences. We'd be looking at talking to the.
So keep in mind, they're just trying to get a continuance at the moment. They're not trying to get final approval of rezoning of the land.
Surrounding property owners and give some buffer and screening beyond what's required in the ordinance. The ordinance would require some buffering, but we think it'd be appropriate to have more buffering than what's required in the ordinance. And then the last reason or basis for the continuance is, last week, Mr. Swain met with Partners in Progress here, that was on August 27th, and there was a request made at that meeting that he hold a community meeting with these folks in the building, maybe some others, so that people can come out, ask questions, get more answers, and so they have agreed to do that.
Well, gentlemen, it's my opinion that this community has known about this now for a few months. I think could have been handled much differently with them addressing the public and those in the concerned area. So I personally am not in favor of continuance. I think I told you that earlier in the meeting. I prefer to go ahead with the full hearing and move this on to the commissioner's table. So, but I'm just one vote. So it's up to you, gentlemen. You have any thoughts you'd like to express?
Well, if Mr. Swain.
So again, if it was hard to hear, he said he does not want to grant a continuance and he wants to move the decision on to the Clinton County Commissioners. So he wants to take the next step forward, essentially.
He does come to the PIP meeting and talk to everybody. Is there more information that has been given, more information than we have now? Because there's very little, this board has very little information to even vote on.
Honestly, right now, there's no ultimate user for this site. There's no actual site plan for the site. And we're talking about drainage. We don't know where they're building the roads are. Those are things we usually. What Mr. Swain has agreed to do in seeing some of these questions is to go ahead and incur some of those expenses, do some preliminary engineering type discussions that normally would have waited to develop plan review, but to go ahead and so that everyone can be more informed, more comfortably informed. That's the type of things he's looking to do and the request for the continuance.
I also sit on the county council, and of course, we're going to welcome any kind of development. I mean, that's what we need. We need revenue. And for me, right now, it's kind of like, man, this doesn't look like anything that I would vote for right now. I probably would be like Dan and just say, yeah, I'm not in favor of this as it is.
So now Doug Swain is going up to talk about the data center.
Well, thank you. My name is Doug Swain. I'll come up here and tell a little bit about, and hopefully kind of at least address some of the questions that I have heard. This is about the cleanest, most simplest form of industrial that you could possibly imagine. They don't emit pollution, there's no truck traffic, and they attract employees, which are essentially the employees of today and going future. And we still are planning to have a larger question and answer session.
So earlier they said that there's no, I think they said that there was no customer, there was no client. So I don't really understand how they can have a questions and answers sort of talk if they don't even have a client, if they don't even know the circumstances surrounding who they're serving. How can they answer questions about how that client will be served? Don't know.
What I'll talk a little bit about too is in terms of the tax revenue, this is especially significant as it relates to the state of Indiana. Because of the Senate Bill 1 and the tax law changes there, the county stands to lose a significant amount of money from the property tax changes. And I'm sure it's.
So I was there at the meeting, and when he brought that up, I was shaking my head. I really have to recommend watching my last video. It's about Senate Enrolled Act 1, or Senate Bill 1. That's what he's talking about now. You can hear him say that because of Senate Bill 1, we're going to cut services, we're going to need a lot of money to fund our public services, and a data center would bring in property tax revenue, which could solve that problem. again, I'm going to have to ask you to watch my previous video. It's got a bunch of information about Senate Enrolled Act 1. I even did my own analysis to see how property tax bills could be affected in the coming years. So please check it out. I have a computer program that you can even put in your own numbers to see what it would look like. But the bigger point that I want to talk about here is that the people in charge of our state, specifically the Republicans, let's be real, it was the Republicans who mostly passed Senate Enrolled Act 1, are defunding our public services, but at the same time, we have tax abatements for data centers for like half of a century, if I remember reading correctly. I actually addressed that in my other video about the data center specifically, so make sure to check that one out too. But, you know, we have all these incentives for these data centers, and then we're defunding our public services, but those data centers could bring in revenue to fund those public services. So it's almost like they've cut things so that they can help their big tech friends move in with data centers and say, hey, look at this good solution for the problem that we just created. And I mean, if you go to opensecrets.org and if you look at who donated to your representative, I think you'll probably be shocked by how much money they've taken in funding their campaigns from big tech, from real estate, which logistics would be a part of. So maybe I'll cover that more in depth in a different video, but it's terrible.
This area is in a TIF district, giving the county control of the money that is generated from the property taxes here. And that can be used to fund any number of things. It can be used to fund infrastructure, it can be used to fund things that would incentivize home developers, apartment developers, other things to drive housing, which would be desperately needed to make up for the tax changes and the law implications of the city. And
I just want to make it clear, because I wasn't sure if I did before, but I don't necessarily oppose data centers, and I don't necessarily oppose AI either. But what I do oppose is how big tech is using data centers and using AI. They're making these massive data centers that have been shown to increase bills, which I'm not going to say one way or another that this one will definitely increase bills or not. As technology improves, obviously, things like that would be less of a problem, maybe not even a problem in the future at all, but not saying that it won't be either. The big problem is that they're using these huge data centers to train their AI, and they're not going to use that AI to really help us. They're going to use that AI to make themselves richer. Meanwhile, they can package it as a solution for the lost revenue that our cities will desperately need. Even the people making the AI tools are being replaced because it happened at one gaming company. And about 6% of people said that AI would lead to more job opportunities, and that was from a Gallup poll, if I remember correctly. So, you know, it was like 50% of people too who felt like they were worried about AI. So this isn't a good solution. I mean, we had Elon Musk's AI praising Hitler. Are these the people that we really want in charge of the future of technology? I don't think so. I don't want Mark Zuckerberg being in charge of AI that then controls our lives. I don't want that. And I hope other people don't. And right now, I just don't believe that we have enough protections against AI and against big tech in general for us to really keep going and keep incentivizing AI and these huge data centers. I just don't think it's a smart move, and I think it'll make everything worse for the average person and everything much better for the most greedy and the most rich people on Earth, really. And I really don't care if you think I'm fear-mongering. I don't think I am. We already have these people warning us that they're going to replace us with AI. So, and you know, one thing that really concerns me is, what is the plan when AI is good enough to replace people? Because you might think it might not be good enough now, but what about in the future? Do you think that these big tech billionaires are going to start handing out their money? No, of course not. And the people that we have in charge right now aren't going to say, okay, well, let's implement a universal basic income so that, now that people don't have to work anymore, they can at least have some sort of money. No, that's not going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to be that. I can pretty much guarantee that. That won't happen unless we speak up and we start implementing protections right now.
And the law implications of the city. And I think ultimately some of the leaders of the city may be judged on this, because as you go forward, there has to be a plan. Either otherwise, you're either going to have to cut services or you're going to have to increase taxes. There's no other way. I would tell you that most of the ones today do not consume any more water generally than what would be used for domestic and fire suppression. So they've come up with closed loop systems that don't utilize all the water and that are better able to cool the systems.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and skip the rest of what he said because there's nothing really that I want to address. Like I said, watching my video is not going to be a substitute for watching the actual meeting, so go ahead and watch that meeting if that's what you want to do.
My name is Rhonda White. I've lived most of my life in Frankfurt. I am in favor of the board here granting the rezoning permit, because it's my opinion, these data centers are coming. I don't know why we're not going to take advantage of the tax revenue that this is going to bring. The questions, in my opinion, have been addressed as far as water usage, as far as electricity. And I think it would be a huge boon to our economy. I don't think Frankfurt really has grown all that much. I don't see any negatives to it, and I would hope that the board would grant the rezoning.
Thank you very much.
So she didn't really give much positives, and she didn't really list any negatives. All she said was that she wanted us to take advantage of the tax revenue because she believes that these data centers are coming one way or another. I simply don't believe that that's how it works. These data centers are coming because our legislators are incentivizing that. So for this next speaker, her name's Caitlin Greeno. I do want to give a warning to everyone that she is trying to lead, I suppose, in opposition to the data center and opposition to our elected officials or appointed officials in general. The justification that she is giving is that they are using public money for non-public purposes. Okay, and she's getting a bunch of this information from a Facebook page, and they're called the Indiana Constitutional Rights, which sounds great, except that these people are grifters, in short. Okay, and I'm not really saying that about Caitlin herself. She seems like an okay person. I suppose I haven't actually met her, but she just seems like a little desperate to try to find an avenue to gain control of the things that she wants control of, specifically when it comes to government. People join certain groups when they feel hopeless, and I would say that this is one of those situations, and I'm going to go a little bit more in depth here in a minute, but I'm just going to let her speak first, and then I'll explain what is going on with this whole Indiana Constitutional Rights page, and why none of it actually makes sense, and why you should avoid signing any of her papers, because she advertises like a bunch of affidavits is what they're called, and notices online, and I just have to warn you all about it. Don't sign anything that you don't 100% know, okay? That's all I'm going to say for now. I'll let her speak now.
To be prepared. My name is Caitlin Greeno. I'm in Mulberry, Indiana. So I'm here today to read an affidavit into the record, and that's why I said it was going to take longer than 3 minutes. And I want to be really clear, to the Area Plan Commission. Of course, I'm not here to be combative or anything. I'm really just here to be a voice for the people, and to instruct our government on what, the people want. So that's really my intent here. So I just have a few remarks, and then I'll get to that. So everybody here tonight, we really just want our public servants to uphold their oath and do the will of the people. And so my prayer tonight is that you guys have a willingness to listen to what I have to say and some of these others, just with open ears and an open heart. So while the Area Plan Commission is an appointed body, they are still bound by Indiana's Constitution. And so these data centers, they get public money at the state and the federal level, which is actually unlawful. There's no constitutional grant of authority to take public money and to use it for non-public purposes. So a data center, of course, is not a public purpose, even if it brings in tax revenue or broadens the tax base. And you can actually see that clearly outlined in the Supreme Court cases of Loan Association versus Topeka, Parkersburg versus Brown, and Cole versus LaGrange, and it's clearly expressed in North Dakota's Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. So I know sometimes, government officials, they talk about, we need this for revenue or to broaden the tax base, and there's actually nothing in the Constitution, and there's Supreme Court decisions about that as well. Affidavit of exercise of authority not granted to government concerning the use of public money for non-public purposes such as economic development and the trespass of people's rights to receive redress of their grievances. Notice to agent is notice to principal, and notice to principal is notice to agent. What that means is that if these are submitted, or I know some of you guys in office or the secretary, that she's responsible to get it to who it needs to go. If it's given it to a commissioner, that they're responsible distributing it downward to like an area plan, an appointed body of whoever's appointed. Affiant, Caitlin Greeno, and everybody else that signed one of these, one of the people as seen in Indiana Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, Republican informed, sui juris, means I'm coming by right, do serve you, Clinton County Area Plan Commission, and all other public officers listed in the distribution list below. This affidavit in this court of record, that would be with a real judge and a jury of peers, to make the following claims that you and your agents may provide immediate due care. Please take notice of the following claims, and that this is sent in reference to all economic development in Clinton County, Indiana, involving the use of public money, including the petition of Logix Realty LLC for a rezone of land for the development of the data center on the agenda at the September 2nd, 2025 Clinton County Area Plan Commission meeting. Claim 1. Notice and demand to cease and desist using public money for non-public purposes such as economic development was served by email to various government servants, including the City of Frankfort Mayor of 2025. Said notice claimed that all government servants have an unavoidable obligation to use public money for public purposes, and that the use of public money for a purpose without constitutional authority, such as for public benefits of economic development, including an increase in tax base, tax revenues, employment, or general economic health, is an unofficial act for which there is no immunity. Said notice also demanded that the use of public money for such purposes immediately cease and desist. No response has been given by this county, by anyone that was served that. Claim 2, notice and point of clarity, do people have all power, was served by email to various government servants, including the Clinton County Council and the Clinton County Commissioners beginning August 3rd, 2025. I have not seen a response for that yet either. Affiant claims that government only has granted powers over the subject matter in constitutions, and that all other powers remain with the people. Government cannot create powers outside of granted powers by people and constitutions, not even through any rulemaking or enacted legislation. Furthermore, people are gifted from God with unlimited, unquestionable, and particular rights which cannot be taken away. The right to receive a redress of grievance is one of the reserved and guaranteed common law rights of the people. These rights are secured in the highest law, being all 50 state constitutions and the Constitution of the United States of America. Such rights being reserved to the people and accepted out or set apart from the government. Use of authority by government not granted in constitutions, such as the use of public money for economic development, and failure of any government servant who receives this affidavit to use their granted authority to redress my grievances related to the same, is a trespass of my rights and an injury. This is a common law action, and affiant claims that all public officers are trustees and servants, and are amenable to the people and have a fiduciary responsibility to protect my property, life, liberty, interests, and pursuit of happiness, including the right to redress of my grievances. Indiana Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we declare that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that all power is inherent in the people, and that all free governments are and have right to be founded on their authority. Indiana Constitution, Article 1, Section 31, no law shall restrain any of the inhabitants of the state from applying to the General Assembly for a redress of grievances. Georgia Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 1, public officers are the trustees and servants of the people and are at all times amenable to them. So I just want to take a pause there, because a lot of people wonder why Georgia Constitution is listed. Did you know that your rights can be found in all of the state constitutions? The Constitution of the United States of America, Article 4, Section 2, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of the citizens of the several states. Affiant demands evidence be shown the government has the power to use discretion concerning the people's right to redress of their grievances, or that the government is not amenable at all times to the people whom they serve. Failure to show this evidence means that government does not have the power to use discretion concerning the people's right to redress of their grievances, and that government is amenable at all times to the people whom they serve. And affiant claims my rights are unconditional and can never be deprived or restricted, and that the deprivation of rights, including the right to receive redress of my grievances, is an injury, a burden, and may be punished. Maxim of law, it would be idle and trite to say that no right is absolute. Maxim of law is a rule of right, and whatever is contrary to the rule of right is an injury. Maxim of law, punishment is due if the words of an oath be false. Therefore, my demand and order of remedy is that you and your agency immediately cease and desist all activity related to any economic development in Clinton County, including the use of public money, including the proposed Logix Realty LLC development. Maxim of law, remedies are the life of rights. Please take final notice. If you would disagree with any of the above claims, rebut by sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury, point by point, to the affiant's address below. That's mine and everybody else that submitted these within 5 days, or you agree by tacit acquiescence that all is truth and law and shall remain forever a part of this court of record and shall be heard by an arbitrator of my choice at your expense, and that you are acting with full knowledge, intent, and malice against one of the people. You also agree the matter is forever settled. All responses not sworn under penalty of perjury are considered non-responses, and agents or attorneys under contract who suppress this affidavit agree to pay the affiant $100,000. Furthermore, continued exercise of authority not granted in Constitution or violation of affiant's rights will incur a fee of $500,000 per infraction upon receipt of this affidavit. That's all I got. Thank you, guys.
I want to now speak about this Indiana Constitutional Rights page and why it's all just fake stuff. So in this screenshot that I'm going to show you right now, you can see that the Indian Constitutional Rights page, which is where Caitlin got her affidavits and her notices from, she didn't make all that stuff up on her own. She didn't do her own research. She found all this stuff on the Indiana Constitutional Rights page. They get all of their information from a man named David Jose. Now, if we go to his website, here he claims, this is David Jose, he claims to have custom teachings and webinar memberships once to twice per month, and you get access to the best law teaching anywhere, even things that have been hidden by the best colleges and law schools. And if you want victory and to be able to take corruption head on with a level of knowledge that no attorney could touch, this is the place for you. This man, supposedly. Okay. Because when you heard Caitlin go through all that, you think, oh, wow, really came out with all those sources. But I mean, I can't go through every single little source for every single post, on the Indiana Constitutional Rights page, because they crank them out really fast, and it'd be impossible to simply debunk every single point every single time, because it just takes so long. That's the point of it. They take little things out of context and then make them bigger than they are, and they crank them out at a really fast pace. That way people just get confused and they feel like, oh, okay, I should really trust these people. They know what they're talking about or whatever. But they don't. And here is an article from someone who has tried to debate him, and he refuses to debate them. And this is someone who is an actual lawyer. She was a former candidate for U.S. Senate, and an experienced California attorney challenged David Jose to a debate, and he has not responded. And they had a previous debate where he essentially muted her when they were on like some Facebook Live or something, or on X, and he muted her, and so she had to respond to his points in the comments of the live chat instead of an actual fair debate where she was able to speak freely. And here it says that Kennedy also raises concerns about Jose engaging in unauthorized practices of law, noting that he is not an attorney, but charges between $75 and $100 for some of his in-person seminars. So that's the main grift here, is that he acts like he knows the law, and he has these lessons where people pay him to learn the law, even though he's not a lawyer. And in fact,
And here's the fake lawyer wannabe David Jose.
Hello, everyone. It is Friday, June 4th. I wanted to come get with you early.
In this video, he admits that he has never been to law school.
In the morning, and dropped this video. For a while, we had people, some of them attorneys, some of them, I don't know who they are, where they're from, but they tried to contest what it is that I do as a man who has started to study the law. The thing is I did not go to law school. I ended up having a fight with CPS. I didn't know all the things that I know today, and I had to fight, and I decided that I'm not giving in to terrorists. I'm going to...
He's not going to give in to terrorists? He's saying, despite not being a lawyer, he's saying that our elected officials or judges or whatever are terrorists because he had a run-in with CPS and he lost. He lost at the state level, he lost at the federal level, and then he lost when he came up against the Supreme Court, all for this CPS case. He lost, so he has no idea what he's doing, and he didn't even win his own cases yet. He's charging people for lessons in law, and now people like Caitlin Greeno are spreading his info, his affidavits, his notices that are essentially threatening our local officials financially, saying that you're going to have to pay me money if you don't agree to all of this. And if you don't agree to all of it, basically you're saying that you are acting unconstitutionally. Does that make sense to anyone? That's like asking, and with the whole, do people hold all power? That's like asking someone, is ice cream cold? Yes, ice cream is cold. Yes, all people hold power. That's just a given. No one needs to agree to that, because that is something that the people should know and affirm to themselves. We don't need permission from our elected officials to know that we hold all the power. How do we hold all the power? That is the important part. We have representatives. We vote them in. They make decisions for us. That is the main way that our government works. Okay? That should be very, very obvious. I hope that is obvious. We also have the First Amendment. We have a right to speak out and to criticize our government. But that doesn't mean we can just say whatever we want either. There are restrictions to what we can do and say. There's hate speech. We can't just do whatever we want all the time just because it says that we have a right to our opinion or whatever. Then obviously comes the Second Amendment. If you don't like the way that your representatives are acting, and if you've sued them and you lost, if you're really desperate enough and you think that things are so dire, then you use your Second Amendment to rise up against the government. Now, I'm not saying to do that. Obviously not. But that's just how it works. The founding fathers have advocated for that, saying that sometimes the blood of patriots is needed for a revolution. So those are the main ways that we can hold our elected officials or any official accountable. So always keep that in mind. Just because that you're writing something that sounds legal or sounds like it's true doesn't mean that it is. Okay? So I had someone respond to me when I called this out, and they said that, well, I would rather side with the Constitution than with any lawyer specifically. Well, of course, most people would. Okay, I'm not saying that every lawyer knows every single thing and that a lawyer has never been wrong, but when you're not a lawyer and you've never been to law school and you're saying that you have hidden knowledge that they don't have, you're a grifter. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, you do know what you're talking about, and you're doing it to manipulate people. That's just how it is. Oh, and I pointed out that the information that they get too, like with the maxims of law that you heard her say, she got that from, and the Indiana Constitutional Rights page got that from Charles A. Weisman's A Collection of Maxims of Law. Now, Charles A. Weisman was a man who was extremely racist, and he was an anti-Semite. And he believed that people of color were beasts roaming the earth. And no, I'm not making that up. And when I pointed that out and I said I would rather side with someone who is not a racist and who does believe in the Constitution, that doesn't mean just because you believe in the Constitution doesn't mean you also have to be a racist. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. But when that person responded to me, they said, oh, well, I bet the British rulers, or I imagine the British rulers also thought that the founding fathers who wrote the Declaration of Independence were proud racists. A very quick Google check will tell you that that is not true. The United Kingdom and all of its colonies did not abolish slavery well after the Declaration of Independence was already written. And I believe Thomas Jefferson wrote a passage condemning the King of England for still having slavery. So they had that in the original draft, but then they took it out. They still had one sentence sort of referencing it in the actual Declaration of Independence. But no, I don't see how the British rulers could really see the Americans as racist when they hadn't even abolished slavery for all of its colonies until like the 1800s. I think it was the early 1800s. So, that doesn't make any sense. Please do some fact checking, and please don't listen to a non-lawyer. Please. And it's really sad because there was a lot of people there that gave their time to Caitlin to speak on their behalf. And I remember hearing one person beside me saying that they regretted giving their time to her. And then there's like two more people who come up who start talking about these affidavits and notices. And it's just really disappointing to have people be distracted by something that is so easily fact-checked. Like, all this information is coming from a non-lawyer, and it wasn't very hard to find that. So it's very disappointing to see that. I hope these people will wake up and start facing the actual issues that are happening in our communities, because trust me, this is nothing. So that's why you'll never see this stuff go to court. It's because it's all a bunch of baloney. It's never going to go to court. They're never really going to face any consequences. These people will never go through with their little affidavits and notices. But they will talk about it a lot, and that's to gain supporters. And for some reason, they won't. I've asked them why they won't go to court or when will it happen, and they won't answer. So I just hope these people will wake up, because there are real issues like SEA 1, and they're wasting their time doing this when they could be speaking up against SEA 1 and demanding our officials speak up against it as well. So I'm going to skip all of the rest of the commentary from other people, and that's just because it's mostly speculation. Obviously, there are facts. I'm not just going to say that is 100% speculation and what is or is not speculation, really. But without knowing who the client is and without knowing the specifics of the data center, we can only speculate. That's just how it is. But I'm going to go ahead and skip that. And I just want to get to what Doug Swain is saying, so that's why I'm mostly going to skip it. So I lied. I do want to let one more person speak, and that's going to be Matt Stidham. And he's the Frankfurt Fire Department chief. So I'm going to go ahead and let him speak.
All right, good evening, board. Matt Stidham. I am one of the residents that is going to be affected by this. My address is 3113 West County Road 100 North. So my biggest concerns is the lack of information that we've received. I know that they spoke a little bit ago about, they came to the homeowners, but I can assure you as a homeowner, 9 days after it was put into the paper that they're going to have this, I had a real estate agent from Lafayette show up to my house with his wife, hand me a piece of paper, and said, here's the offer we want to make you, look at it, tell us what you want to do. I can assure you, looking at myself and my neighbors that I have around me, a lot of those are in their 70s. They don't have the availability to just up and move, and they don't have the availability to have this in their backyard. So for me, as a homeowner in that area, I definitely am against having this rezoned. I believe in the fact that our government will look out for us, and one of the things is if you choose to make your decisions tonight, at least reach out to the companies wanting to work in our area and find out some more information. Have them reach out to us more independently versus sending somebody from Lafayette to our area. There's a lot of concerns that we may have. I've listened to everybody in here today talk about the good, the bad. I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to have all the answers. The answers I have right now for me is for me and my neighbors who was left out of this process. I am sure, talking with some of the farmers that I am friends with who have been part of this process, they knew about this long before I did. And as a homeowner in that area, I think it's very unfair of our community to not include the residents going to be affected by this. And that's what I have.
Thank you.
So it's crazy because earlier, Doug says all these things that make it seem like he wants to be so involved with the community, but then you hear from Matt that they didn't really talk to the people who would be affected by this. They sent an agent to talk and make an offer, and that was basically it. They're just really make an offer, and that was it. And there was no real community involvement because they don't really care. I don't know why they would. All they really need is for them to give up their land so that they can develop and make a ton of money through a data center. So why should they actually care when they can just throw a bunch of money at them and hope that they leave?
We talked about the constitutional right of the people, but what about, that's true, and life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, but I would also ask to put the other hat on, and what about the people that do wish to sell their land? I mean, people that have farmed it, people that have owned it for years, and this is, they deserve and have a right to be able to sell their land and be able to recognize the fruits of that investment and that labor and their time and efforts and sweat over a number of years. They have rights and they should be able to sell that land. And as long as it is consistent with what the city or the county wants or desires, or consistent with some of their plans for growth. I think that that sometimes gets overlooked. And part of what we did in kind of pulling it back and not having a 700-acre submittal petition for rezoning is hopefully to give additional time for consideration of the project and how that might flow and be grown or not grown or staged or what happens to those residents. We knew when we did it, we were going fast because we had a couple of users that really wanted larger tracts of land. Those groups have mostly gone on. So for those that are against data centers and always will be, congratulations. Those groups probably will not come here.
So I wasn't sure if he's saying there that none of the big clients that wanted huge amounts of land are completely gone, or if there's still one or two, or what's going on there, but who knows?
I'm just not sure I'm ready to move forward with the rezoning at this time, so I would ask you folks what you think.
Well, to me, this has been very informative tonight on both sides. My goal, when I ran for commissioner, and it's with any position I'm in, I want to hear the pros, the cons, the pluses, the minuses, and I want to know all this up, down, forward, backward. And this meeting tonight is something that should have occurred 3 months ago.
Yes, sir.
So that we could all make informed decisions. We can weigh out the options, and it's for the too many unanswered questions that I don't feel like I could be in favor of anything but a negative recommendation.
I like what Russ said, and I totally agree with Russ. I've been elected, I think, to hear everything that needs to be heard, and I heard from everybody here. And my thought is, I'd like to give them 30 days because I'd like for PIP, that group, to get as many citizens as possible so that the whole town can hear this. I feel better with what I heard tonight. At least I heard information.
Yeah.
There was a commissioner, there may be a couple of commissioners that didn't have any information. So if you feel like you're behind the 8 ball, a lot of us have been behind it. So I feel better from what I've heard. But I gotta tell you, I think that some people, if it wasn't for the data center, it doesn't matter what comes to that property or that industrial park, you're gonna say no to it. And you heard the comprehensive plan here. And it's gonna go one day the industrial park is gonna grow. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Growing, it's taking all our resources and raising everything we have.
You didn't understand me. I'm just saying, I listened to you, but you talk about the farm ground like it's my farm ground. It's a farmer's farm ground.
I don't care what they do with it. Are they gonna stick around when all our taxes shoot up and our water prices are going up? They still.
I appreciate everything that's been said tonight. I really
Be
do.
respectful of your time, please be respectful of ours. This is a board discussion now.
So my last thing would be, as a county councilman, I heard some things I wanted to hear that nobody on the council knows anything about, so I want to take some things back, but I'm looking forward to another public meeting. That's what I'm looking forward to. That would be my.
To send a negative recommendation to the county commissioners, simply because we have not been informed. This came as quite a surprise to us. And I don't know anything about data centers other than what I've learned tonight, what little research I've been able to do. I'm not totally against it. If they can come out and demonstrate to this community that this will be worthwhile, there will be a financial impact to us that will benefit this community, I would be in favor of it. But at this time, I'm not in favor of the recommendation to approve this. So my motion is to send a negative recommendation to the county commissioners.
And I will second that.
Yes.
I would also like to say that this should be the very beginning of the.
So it seems like a good thing. Like, it seems like they passed a motion to send a negative recommendation to the Clinton County Commissioners, but that's not exactly what happens. They had to have all 4 that were present at the meeting, 2 were absent, and then the 1 person recused themselves. So the 4 that are left there had to all vote to send that negative recommendation to the Clinton County Commissioners. Now the one on the middle left, Jeff Chenoweth, I think is how you pronounce it, he actually voted no to a negative recommendation. So they did not pass a negative recommendation. So we're going to hear what he has to say about it.
I guess I would, if I'm changing my vote, it's just so that we've got 4 members.
No, that's understand, and that's would not be the first time that's
It
occurred.
doesn't matter, because it's going to the commissioners, and they're gonna do what they're gonna wanna do anyway.
If you
Because
can,
they've seen this, they've heard this, they know me. So
we've had board members in the past that if you feel like you want to put on the record by speaking into the mic, the reason why you're changing what you're doing, then you can definitely do that. That way it's in the record why you did it. Obviously, we need 4 together to take any action, whatever it may be.
well, Liz, I'm confused, because this is how I feel. I mean, this is how I feel. I feel like I'd like to. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't want to be the heavy here because 3 other people didn't show up.
So I think you have 2 options as a board. Yes, if you feel like you want to change your vote to a negative just so there's a consensus and you want to specify that so that it's on the record, if you didn't agree with it, but you didn't see the point in hanging the board indefinitely over a lack of ability to get 4 as required by state law to act, you can do that. Or if you feel firmly the way you feel and you don't want to change your vote, which is totally fair, then the answer to that would be to send no recommendation to the county commissioners as a final decision-making body and vote unanimously for that. They're going to be able to review this hearing on YouTube. 2 commissioners are in the audience and on the board today. So they've heard the testimony. I think they're aware, and basically you're just saying it's ultimately the commissioner's decision. This board is unable to reach a majority opinion. So instead of blockading it and being stuck, we're just going to send it to them to figure it out.
So I will vote no recommendation, and I would vote yes on that. But I still stand that I'd like to hear more from this group. I think they've earned it. I don't know what's happened in the past. I know what I finally got to hear and see tonight. So that this meeting means something, I will vote with the other 3 members.
So I'm going to take a roll call vote then for sending a neutral or no recommendation to the county commissioners, simply to pass it on so they can then decide what to do with it. And starting with Dan Sheets.
Yes.
I'm slightly disappointed that they didn't have more of a discussion why he was so neutral about it. If there was anything that could even make him positive or negative on it. So I have to be honest, while, my first reaction afterwards was, wow, I can't believe they sent a neutral recommendation. But again, as staff pointed out, the commissioners would be able to review this. They'd be able to see that 3 of them wanted to send a negative and 1 of them wanted to send a neutral. So that was 3 out of 7 because 3 were absent. So they didn't have a vote. I'm really curious as to why that is, but I don't think it's that much of an impact. I wish they had been there, but, they can always send their own opinion to the commissioners on their own, but it would have been nice to have it as public record. I will be at the next meeting for the Clinton County Commissioners. I believe that is the 19th. I'll put in the actual date afterwards, so yeah, make sure to speak up, make sure to use your voice. This isn't really a done deal yet, so don't let anyone tell you that it is, and make sure that you know what you're signing and what group you are joining, and make sure to fact check. Just because someone says things that you agree with doesn't mean that it's actually true. This is the new format that I'm going to be using. I also want to highlight my community comments. I really want this format to bring more engagement from the community, so I'll be addressing comments as well and highlighting those, and that way we can all have a discussion, because I don't want this to just be my opinion. I want us to have a discussion, and I want to be able to have a constructive conversation with people. So in my previous video, I had this comment here from Ron Norris, who said raising property value is how they're going to get their money back. And that was in response to SEA 1, or they introduced credits for homeowners. So this person is essentially saying in order to make up for the new tax credits for homeowners, they'll just raise the property value. So that is not actually how it really works from what I remember. They can't just raise property value however they want. They can't just make up an arbitrary number. Your property value is based on the values of your homes surrounding your area. And the assessor doesn't just make up a number either. The assessor has to have a value that is, I guess, considered close to what it actually should be. I think it had to be like 99% or something accuracy from the assessor, or 90%, something like that. That doesn't mean mistakes don't happen, of course, but that's what the appeals process is for. Yeah, they can't just make up arbitrary numbers, though the way that they're going to make up for this is new taxes and new fees that's going to harm lower income families. And again, watch my video about Senate Enrolled Act 1 to learn all about that, because this is really important. This is going to affect a lot of people in Frankfurt because a lot of our population lives under the poverty level. This is why I have I've criticized some of our local officials publicly online because I don't feel like they're speaking up enough. In one of the recent meetings, they said, "Oh, we can ask them to make some changes, and we're just going to have to hope that they make some changes to Senate Enrolled Act 1." And that crushes the spirit right there, because they're not going to demand change. It's not good enough to just lobby anymore. We have to start demanding. We have to start banding together, and that includes our elected officials, our local elected officials. They need to call out the state officials. It doesn't matter if they're part of the same party, but that's the reason that they won't speak out, is because they're part of the same party. Do you think they want to go against the people that are fundraising their campaigns or helping their campaigns and advertising them? Probably not. And I hate that, privately they'll say something to a legislator or the governor. They'll say, hey, this bill's going to be really bad, whatever. And then publicly they'll say, oh, well, we're just going to have to make some changes. We're going to have to find some efficiencies. No, this crap is bad, and it's going to cause new taxes to be implemented that is going to harm our lower income communities. And this isn't good. I mean, they were talking about implementing a wheel tax, and that, of course, is a tax that affects lower income folks more. And from my analysis, if you've watched the video, then you know that the lowest income families are not going to save the most from Senate Enrolled Act 1. So that's all I have for the community highlight. I hope to have a lot more discussions and a lot more community highlights in the future. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.